Hi, Vanessa here, alcoholic. Sobriety date's October 8th, 2017, and I want to talk about prayer and meditation. Surprise, surprise. So, I want to talk about specifically one of the tools that I use for meditation, which is two-way prayer. And what we do in two-way prayer, it was actually, I'll tell you a little bit about how I got introduced to this. So, I was in my recovery group, Big Book Awakening. And it's Big Book Awakening, BBA is just a way to go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, except they are basically all addictions. And it's just a way to go through the steps, essentially. And what always got emphasized to me and what I felt was so different and so um, true to me, if I knew that I was going to get and stay sober, was this practice of meditation. I never knew that that's what AA was basically about. It's not only connecting to this higher power, but connecting to it through prayer and meditation and carrying that into everyday living, not just when I'm, in the morning praying and meditating, or not just when I'm in a meeting and not just when I'm sponsoring, but like in all my affairs, right? And so being able to connect and to recognize and to get familiar with this way of existing, it takes place in the morning for me. Although, of course, I can participate in this meditation any time of day. And I just wish that more people knew that that's kind of the basis of what AA was. People get really stopped by it because they're just like, oh, what? Step one, I'm powerless. I'm powerful. Why would I say that I'm powerless? And it's like, okay, oh, but drugs and alcohol is just our, that's all that we're saying. But of course, we come into this program, a lot of us with an ego and delusions that are beyond our even grasp, really. So it takes quite a bit of awareness, humility, and hopelessness to even embark on the 12-step journey. And then in addition to that, it's this idea of like thinking about anything outside of this wall of skin that we're in, like, wait, there's something bigger than me out there and I'm supposed to have faith in it. And people want to also say that maybe it's a religious thing. It's not a religious thing. It's religious if you make it religious, but it's actually just a way of existing in this world. Understanding that we're not just islands, that the whole world doesn't start and stop within these cells that are, composed to make a Vanessa, like there's actual world out there and I'm just in it. So it's really important for me to, especially as someone who thrives in chaos and somebody who really can over empathize with people, who can become overly compassionate, who takes on other people's hurts, and also sometimes in a cancerous way almost can metabolize that into resentment, general grudges, into shame, into hopelessness over the state of the world, over um, a defeatedness, over anger, over depression, and then self-pity, and then fear. That is, I can very quickly, I oscillate between these things whenever I'm not in conscious contact with God. And so it's really important for me to get centered every morning before any of that crap can get into my brain. I just need to get centered and remember my place in the world. And both good and bad, right? Um, so I'm not God, it turns out. What a relief. Also, I'm not this minuscule nothing that they can't make a difference. So that's also a relief. I'm also not just to be carried through. I can go with the flow, but I also have an awareness um and choices that I can make. So I can exercise my power in this way that I feel is most genuine and aligned to my purpose and the good things that I value, truth, love, um, helpfulness, and being pure in all my intentions and relationships. And I feel like as long as I can continue to stay centered on that, whatever comes at me is cool. I just need to be centered in that. Um, And the way that I do this is through continuing to practice and grow in my prayer meditation life. And so I do a lot of things. One of the things is I read pages 83 through 88 in the big book. And this is because it's kind of just aligning me with what I'm here for. It talks, if you have a big book, I recommend that you read that. Try reading it every morning, first thing in the morning. Instead of looking at your phone, just open up the book and read it. 83 through 88. I mean, you can do it. If you really wanted to get a shortcut, 86 through 88 will get you what you need. Um, and it really does just like set your mind on what is possible, what is good in the world. Because there's a lot of good in the world. And I feel like people don't want to focus on it. And it's like, there's a lot of good in the world. It doesn't negate that there's a lot of bad in the world, but there's a lot of good in there too. And so I usually read that. Um, and it's really important to do this in silence. And silence is violence to the addict and alcoholic who cannot sit still, who cannot feel at home in their skin, who cannot appreciate the present moment. And that is just robbing us of our life experiences. We must learn to be present in this very moment because it's the only thing that exists. And so I find a lot of freedom in that, maybe as I tend to do to a fault, because I'm like, "Oh, the past doesn't exist anymore, actually. I've learned what I could and done and over it," and people will bring it up sometimes, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that did happen, didn't it? How is that impacting, why are we talking about it now?" So it's like, I just really enjoy staying present and focused, right? And so, well, when I'm spiritually and trust me, I still go into morbid self-reflection, and that happens. I'm a human. Part of the prayer and meditation of two-way prayer involves just being in quiet, reading something that will set yourself in the perspective of your higher power, and then being quiet. Typically, I don't remember how long quiet I used to do. Now I'm just doing about 5 minutes, but I feel like at one point I was doing maybe 20 minutes of quiet. Um, but I don't really remember what the rules are. I will put a link to two-way prayer and how Father Bill W does it. That's his real name, by the way. He's a really great guy. He has a book coming out later this year. Highly recommend. And he has a podcast, which is amazing. I recommend going to like the very first episodes if you really want to get in deep with like the spiritual practices of AA. It's amazing. Um, and so sitting in that quiet, and then this is an active type of meditation. Getting, I usually have like a spiral notepad or something and a pen, and just writing from the consciousness of your higher power, which means your higher self. It could be God, it could be Jesus, it could be consciousness, it could be love. I've noticed that Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, actually has adopted this practice as well. I actually DM'd her when I heard her talking about it on a podcast and was like, is this two-way prayer? But you're renaming it something different. And she's like, yes, she wants to get Father Bill W to do like maybe some kind of a workshop or something with her community. And I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, it's life-changing if everybody were to engage in this, like we would be a completely different world, which is why I'm not going to stop talking about prayer meditation. And so what you're doing when you are actually, so you have your moment of quiet and then you take your pen, and that moment of quiet is just to align yourself to right size yourself into this world, right? And like, who are we really? What are we? We are loved, we are holy, we are divine. And then writing from this place of like downloading, channeling, hearing, being dictated to our higher power and writing down what comes. It's helpful to have a question in mind. So sometimes I'll be like, God, what should I do about this? Or sometimes I'm just don't know. And I'm just like, hey, God, what do you want? What do you have for me today? And it helps to always start this type of letter. You're basically writing this letter from God to you, from your higher self to you. And it starts to help, or it helps to start with like a term of endearment. So my love, my girl, my daughter, your holiness, whatever you want to be, addressed as. And and start with that. So usually, I don't even know what I usually start. This isn't even my two-way prayer. I honestly can't tell you what I start mine. I think it changes a little bit, but probably use some variation of all of those. And then just start writing what comes. It's like free writing, right? Don't worry about if it's right or wrong, if it sounds godly or not. Just write down anything. Don't think about it. Just write down what comes to you. I've had some amazing experiences in this, and sometimes I feel led to share it with people, and because I'm like, I don't know what this really means, and then it'll be a message for them. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is amazing, very cool. Other times it is very much a message for me, and I'm like, okay, that wasn't the answer I wanted, but it is like things just get so clarified. I can't express. Some people will say it's imaginative prayer, right? Like you're imagining that your God is speaking to you, and even so, if that was true, there's still some essence of what you feel that you should be hearing in that, right? Um, and there are so when this was originally introduced back in the early AA days, oh, and I'm sorry, then you usually write until I usually write till the end of the page because I'll do one full page at a time. Some people will write and time it for just 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just write what you got to write. Sometimes you just feel the message is done when it's done, and then you can say thank you and then read it, contemplate it, integrate whatever you have learned from that writing. It's very important to integrate what you have read into your writing. If it's giving you direction, take that direction. If you're unsure if it's you writing or if it's your higher power, if it is this greater power, if it is this love communicating to you, one good tip to, I guess, test what you download is through the Oxford Group's 4 pillars. And so the Oxford Group was around at the very beginning of AA. They helped influence a lot of how AA came to be. Bill Wilson kind of ripped them off a little bit, but he translated a lot of their stuff to be non-religious and more in line with how addicts and alcoholics need to communicate, essentially. And so this is where you want to test it against these 4 things. So is it loving? Is it ugly or beautiful is basically like the question that the Oxford would ask. Is it true? You know, is this true or is it false? Is it honest? Is it pure? Is it pure of mind, body, and spirit? Is your intention behind this pure, or do you have an ulterior motive beneath it? And then the last one, is it unselfish? So is it helpful? Does it help someone, or am I only thinking about myself? So loving, unselfish, um, pure, and is it true? And so when you're downloading these things, when you're done reading it, and you're like, oh, well, it's telling me to, run up all my credit cards and not pay the bills. Then it's like, okay, it doesn't meet any of the criteria, right? So when you are done reading it, test it against those 4 things. If it doesn't pass that, then it's probably you just kind of riding through. And there's nothing wrong with that either. At least a little bit more, you're a little bit clear about where you're at. Um, but it's a really good experience, and I highly recommend. It does take some practice. That is what it is, right? It's a meditation practice. You're never accomplished in meditation. It is a practice, and I love that. I love that there's not going to be this final form until I'm like dead, where I'm supposed to have accomplished this thing in meditation. It's just this practice that I get to engage in. So, two-way prayer, I'll put some links down below if you want to check it out. Highly recommend the older episodes just to get started, just to get familiar with this concept of two-way prayer. And also, Father Bill W is awesome. I love what he says about stuff. So, that's all I have right now. Do you do prayer and meditation practices? What do you do? Yeah, I want to hear about it. All right. Thank you everyone for watching in the comments and text messages that I get from my friends that watch this. All right. I love you all, and I hope you have an amazing Tuesday. Okay, bye.